What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. This is the main event deep dive for UFC Vegas 37. We have the main event is going to be Anthony Smith going against Ryan Spann, a fight that I'm looking forward to, a fight that should definitely bring some violence one way or another. And I'm here with Uncle Weezy. Uncle Weezy, what is up? It feels like it's been weeks since we've last done a video. How are you doing, and how was your week off?
The week off was great, man. I really kind of just pulled away from MMA for almost the entire week. Really relaxed. Even got a little vacation in this weekend out in the country. So definitely rejuvenated, ready to go for a full week of content here, starting up on my channel this week. But yeah, it's been over a week since we did Stat Diggers last week, and it feels like forever, man. But I'm ready to get back into it, ready to talk some fights. We got 15 of them coming up on Saturday. So we got our work cut out for us this week, man.
Yep, for sure. I've been researching the card all day. I'm about done, but yeah, 15 fights. It's going to be a ton to do this week. But hopefully, all 15 do stay on the card. A 15 fight card would be nice compared to, I believe, last card we had like 9 fights. So 15 would be sweet for sure. But yeah, we have this one, Ryan Spann going against Anthony Smith, a very good main event. Before we get into the breakdown, guys, my bad, it's been a while. Before we get into the breakdown, if you guys can leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not yet, have content coming out throughout the week. My full card breakdown and prediction video will be out on Tuesday, live stream on Friday, and then live stream on Saturday as well. So lots going on. Make sure you sub so don't miss out on all the content. Go sub to Uncle Weezy as well. He has a lot going on this week as well. His YouTube name is Uncle Weezy. So yeah, let's start with the tail of the tape here for this main event. We have Anthony Smith, who is 33 years old, 6'4", with a 76-inch reach, going against Ryan Spann, who is 30 years old, 6'5", 79-inch reach. So some things I do want to point out. Ryan Spann is going to be the younger fighter, not just in terms of his age, but in fight years as well. Anthony Smith has a ton of fights on his record, double the fights of Ryan Spann even. And, Ryan Spann's going to be 3 years younger. He's also going to have a 1-inch height advantage. This guy is huge. And, so is Anthony Smith, 6'4" himself. Ryan Spann's going to have a 79-inch reach compared to Anthony Smith, who's going to have a 76-inch reach. So Ryan Spann will have a reach advantage as well. We'll take a look at the last fights between the two. Anthony Smith did have a submission win over Alexander Gustafsson a couple fights ago, and then he lost by knockout against Glover Teixeira. In that fight, I believe it was during COVID times, and I believe I remember hearing an interview where Anthony Smith was talking about for his training camp, he was like training with his wife or something, with his wife's yoga mat or something. So kind of take that into consideration a little bit. He did go out there and he started out very good, but he kind of gassed out and got dominated and finished in that 5th round against Teixeira. So that was a really weird fight there. After that, takes on Alexander Rakic, and it was probably the worst we've ever seen Anthony Smith look. Got taken down. It was just held there for the entire fight. Basically did nothing, had no get-up game whatsoever, was content to just stay on his back and, pretty much do anything at all. And then after that, he did submit Devin Clark. And then after that, he did knock out Jimmy Crute, a fight where he was looking very good on the feet. I was really surprised to see Jimmy Crute not shoot any takedowns up until he got hurt. And then once he did get hurt, Jimmy Crute was going out there and taking down Anthony Smith easily with one leg, which was very interesting. I really do question the game plan of Jimmy Crute, but, Anthony Smith was able to get a first-round TKO nonetheless with the injury to Crute's leg there. As far as Ryan Spann, you can tell that there is a big difference in the level of competition here for Spann. Smith has been fighting the best guys for a while now. Spann's fighting guys like Lil Nog knocked him out in the first round, I believe. Devin Clark submitted him in the second round of fight where not much went on. And then in the second round, he's able to find a submission. I believe it was standing guillotine. And then after that, he beat Sam Alvey in a very lackluster fight where it was not a good look for Ryan Spann. Like, he arguably could have lost that fight. A lot didn't happen in that fight, but Spann was ultimately able to pull out that split decision. And then against Johnny Walker, lost, I believe, in the first round by knockout. And then Serkinov won in the first round by knockout as well. So Ryan Spann, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, of course, against a little bit lower level of competition. Anthony Smith is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. So both guys doing pretty well in their last couple fights here. Uncle Weezy, I say we start with the experience of what sticks out to you there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously 51 fights for Anthony Smith. I mean, that is just a huge amount of experience. And, and the guy's only 33 years old. So in 13 and a half years of his career, this guy, is averaging over 3 fights per year. So that's huge. He's been very active. And if we look, it's the same thing for Spann. At about 8.5 years, having 25 fights, he's averaging about 3 fights a year. But, we see twice as much cage time for Anthony Smith. Twice as many pro fights, twice as many UFC fights, about 4 times as much time in the UFC cage for Anthony Smith. So we see a massive experience advantage here. And Anthony Smith is not one of those guys where we have to say, oh, well, he's getting to the tail end of his career. So, the experience advantage may not be as big of an advantage when you're at the tail end of your career and the arrow is kind of pointing down. Smith is still performing very well. I mean, he's fighting the top level guys. So the fact that Spann is only 3 years younger, I would give, Smitty obviously a massive experience advantage here. And when we look at the finishing numbers for both of these guys, they both jump off the page. Anthony Smith, in 35 professional wins, has finished over 90% of them inside the distance. So that is 32 out of 35 wins have come inside the distance for Anthony Smith. While for Ryan Spann, he's got an 84% finish rate. So that would be 16 wins out of his 19 wins have come inside the distance. So both of these guys are prolific finishers, and prolific finishers in a massive sample size of wins, as they have 54 wins between them. And only 48 of them have come inside the distance. So it's just under a 90% combined finish rate for these guys in 54 combined wins. So very dangerous finishers, both of these guys are. And we know that Spann's going to be the bigger guy here. 3 years younger, 1 inch taller, according to the UFC, and a 3-inch reach advantage. Both of these guys train at fantastic camps. Anthony Smith fighting out of Factory X and Ryan Spann fighting out of Fortis MMA. And then the other interesting thing that I wanted to bring up here, when we start to look at violence bets, one of the things that we like to talk about, Brady, is how many of the combined losses of the two combatants are inside the distance. Because usually if you're betting inside the distance, it's a little bit better to look at those losing numbers to find out whether these guys are losing inside the distance rather than winning numbers. And we see for Ryan Spann, 6 of his pro losses have come. He's had 6 losses. 4 of them have come inside the distance. And for Anthony Smith, we've got an 81% finish rate. So 13 of his 16 losses have come inside the distance. Add that up, and we get 17 out of 22 losses combined for these guys coming inside the distance, for just under an 80% losing rate and just under a 90% winning rate inside the distance. Boy, this one really screams violence, dude.
It 100% does. And you mentioned the amount of experience of Anthony Smith. It's just crazy that the guy has 51 fights and he's only 33. And of course, he has taken a ton of damage throughout his career. So I do expect to see him slow down at some point, in the near future. And we actually have seen performances where he's looked like dog crap, but, he's still going. I mean, he looked really good in his last fight against Jimmy Crute. His striking looked really good. Obviously, in his fight before that against Devin Clark, he looked really good in that fight. He looked horrible against Rakic, horrible against Teixeira, but those guys are like really good. So it's kind of hard for me, at least, to, gauge, where is Anthony Smith at? Because some fights he looks really, really good, and some fights he just looks terrible. Some fights he looks terrible up until his opponent's gassed out and he's able to find a finish himself. And, in terms of the violence, I'm 110% with you there. Like, these guys are finishers. Anthony Smith, a 91% finish rate, 54% by knockout, 37% by submission. Very good grappler, very good striker as well. Ryan Spann has a ton of power. He's finishing actually 58% of his finishes are come by submission and 26 by knockout, 84% finish rate for Ryan Spann. And you mentioned these guys get finished a ton. Anthony Smith, 9 knockout losses. 4 by submission as well. Ryan Spann, 3 knockout losses, 1 by submission. So I absolutely see somebody getting finished in this fight. And I think a violence bet is something to definitely look at, Uncle Weezy. So something I'm going to be taking a look at for sure. We'll talk about the odds on that later in the video. But getting into the striking statistics, Uncle Weezy, what sticks out to you here? Anything stick out to you here?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that sticks out in this fight, period. This is a great fight to break down from a statistical perspective, because it seems like in every one of the noticeable areas, whether it's the tail of the tape, whether it's the experience, whether it's the striking, whether it's the grappling, or whether it's the strength of schedule, you're finding one of these two fighters having a big advantage in every one of these categories. It's really not close in any category except for grappling. So let's look at Smith, right? And you had just brought something up, which I think is very important when you look at how you're going to handicap an Anthony Smith fight, because a lot of them finish inside the distance. But let's look at, first of all, that striking differential for Anthony Smith here. Anthony Smith lands 3.05 significant strikes a minute and absorbs 4.52. So he's got a negative almost 1.5 significant strike differential. That is that's striking numbers of somebody that does not win minutes. Just plain and simple. If you're basically, what this is saying, every time your opponent lands 9 strikes, you're only landing 6. So in the judge's eyes, over a 5-minute period, you're not going to win rounds getting outstruck by 1.5 significant strikes per minute. We look at the power numbers. Smith's power numbers, he's knocking his opponents down percentage-wise about twice as much as he's getting knocked down. So he's showing a pretty good power differential there. He's landing 0.43 knockdowns per 15 minutes and absorbing 0.34. He's been knocked down 4 times, and he's knocked down his opponents 5 times. But if we look at Spann here, we see a positive significant strike differential of 0.1. So he's looking much better there rather than being negative 1.5 like Smitty is here. But the power numbers, Brady, are what jump off the page, including those contender series fights for Spann. He's landing a knockdown on over 3% of the significant strikes that he's landing. So that means he's landed 5 knockdowns, as many knockdowns as Anthony Smith has landed in his career. Ryan Spann has landed. That's in 8 fights for Spann. He has 5 knockdowns, while in 16 fights for Smith, he has 5 knockdowns. It took Anthony Smith 536 significant strikes to land 5 knockdowns, while it only took Ryan Spann 155. I mean, that is a huge power differential there for Ryan Spann. And all you got to do is look at this dude. Just take one look at him in order to understand that this guy's got crazy power. I mean, look at the size of him. He's 6'5". I'm not even sure how he makes 205, but somehow back in the day, he used to make 185. I don't know how he did that. But he's got crazy power. He hits super hard. And one of the reasons I think we see twice as many submissions on his record as we do knockouts is that he hits so hard when you're standing up that you're going to probably shoot in for a sloppy takedown. And that's when he snatches you up in one of those front chokes that he's really prolific at getting. So Spann is going to be, on paper, the much better striker here, just in terms of landing more than he absorbs, landing with way more power than Anthony Smith has. Like we said, the same amount of knockdowns for these two guys. 536 significant strikes landed for Smith, 155 for Spann. So a massive power advantage here for Spann. And then when we look at what they're absorbing knockdown-wise, Anthony Smith, 0.34 knockdowns allowed per 15 minutes. Ryan Spann, 0.34. So really, it's like a 5-to-1 ratio of Spann knocking down his opponents to Spann getting knocked down. So we see a big power advantage here for Spann. We see a big efficiency advantage here for Spann. And we see him just being a little more active than Smith. He throws 7.85 and Smith only throws 6.32. So I'm giving Spann a pretty significant, on paper, striking advantage in this fight. How are you seeing it?
Yeah, I kind of see it the same way, and I have some serious concerns in terms of the striking defense for Anthony Smith. You mentioned that the negative significant strike differential is not a good look, whereas Spann has a positive significant strike differential, and the power numbers of Spann as well. Spann hits like an absolute truck, and Anthony Smith is sitting with a 42% striking defense. Like, that is an absolute recipe for disaster, because, I can definitely see a scenario where Spann can potentially knock out Smith on the feet. But yeah, on the feet, I don't think it's like there's a huge difference there. I mean, Smith, especially in his last fight, he looked like his striking was much improved. It looked really good against Croup, but just the power of Ryan Spann and how hittable Smith is, I think it's something to very well be concerned about. So I'm with you. I do give Spann the striking advantage, but I do think Smith's not out of it by any means at all. But I think a really interesting aspect of this fight is going to be the ground game, the grappling stats. So kind of how about you talk about that a little bit? Because I think there's a lot of things, at least for me, that sticks out in terms of the grappling. I want to see if the same things stick out for you here.
Yeah, these are fascinating grappling stats. We've got, let's just start with the offensive for both of these guys. So Smitty, 21 takedown attempts in 16 fights. So definitely not prolific in going to the takedowns. And he's not getting them at a good percentage. 28.57% takedown accuracy for Anthony Smith. So he's only gotten 6 takedowns in 16 fights. He's averaging 0.51 takedowns per 15 minutes and averaging 0.51 submission attempts per 15 minutes. He gets 8.29% control time and yields 36.46% control time. So obviously, Anthony Smith's opponents have attempted twice as many takedowns as Anthony Smith has. Smitty's got 21 takedown attempts. Smith's opponents, 40 takedown attempts. But they're outtaking him down at a 3.5 to 1 ratio. So for every one takedown that Smith gets, his opponents are getting 3.5. That's a 21 to 6. 21 takedowns allowed, 6-4 for Smith. And then if we look at that control time ratio, we're looking at about 8.33. So it would be 24, 25, 33. So about 4.5 to 1%. A 4.5 to 1 ratio of control time for, control time against for Smith. So he's even getting controlled at a higher rate when he gets taken down than when he takes down his opponents. So everything about Anthony Smith is showing deficiency here in terms of his grappling offense and his grappling defense. His grappling, he's got less than a 50% takedown defense. 47.5% takedown defense. He's getting taken down 1.79 times per 15 minutes. So obviously, if Ryan Spann wants to go to the grappling here, it looks like he's going to have a lot of success. I mean, below 50% takedown defense is unacceptable, especially at this level. Ryan Spann has 12 takedown attempts in 8 fights, so 1.5 takedown attempts per fight, but he's getting them at a 41.67% clip. He's averaging 1.72 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he's very active with submission attempts, getting 1.72 submission attempts per 15 minutes. Ryan Spann is out-controlling his opponents 27% to 15%. So he's actually gotten taken down 6 times while Spann's only gotten 5 takedowns himself. But even though his opponents have taken Spann down more than Spann has taken his opponents down, Spann is out-controlling his opponents at almost a 2 to 1 ratio. So that tells me when Spann takes down his opponents, he's better at holding down his opponents than his opponents are at holding him down. He's a little more economical in terms of getting the takedowns, but not showing great takedown defense in his own right. He's only showing 60% takedown defense. He's getting taken down 2.06 times for 15 minutes, and he's being controlled 15% of the time. But 15% of the time is about 6.5 minutes, so it's less than a minute of control time per takedown allowed. So for Smith, it's more than that. For Smith, it's something like about almost 3 minutes of control time per takedown allowed. So every time Smith's getting taken down, he gets kept there. So what's really important that I want to talk about is, especially in my opinion, it's the Alexander Rakic fight. The Rakic fight, you can see if you go in with a very, very, very conservative game plan against Anthony Smith, the conservative game plan being, I'm not going to strike with this guy. I just want to take him down, hold him down, and do enough on top so that the ref doesn't pull me off of him. You can see that game plan working to perfection for Alexander Rakic. Alexander Rakic had, I would have to look at the advanced stats, and I will, but he had a ton of control time in that fight. Rakic had 734 seconds of control time out of 900. So that's about 5/6 of the time he had control time over Smith. Very, very, very easy fight to win. You want to know how many significant strikes Alexander Rakic landed in 15 minutes against Anthony Smith in that fight? 44. You want to know how many Smith landed? 9. 9 significant strikes in 15 minutes. So that tells me if you want to take this guy down and hold him down, it's very easy to do. Rakic didn't even. You want to know how many takedowns Rakic got in that fight, Brady?
Let's say 3, maybe.
How about 0? He got 0. Now, this is a fact. He got 0 takedowns, and it's because Anthony Smith was so sloppy on the feet in that fight that Alexander Rakic, when he wound up on top of Smith, wasn't even credited with a takedown because he wasn't even trying to take him down. Look, there's a very easy path to victory here for Ryan Spann. Will he choose to take that path? Because we just saw Jimmy Crute decide, no, you know what? I think I'm going to strike with this guy. After Teixeira and Rakic gave everybody in the light heavyweight division a very clear game plan for how to easily defeat Anthony Smith. Crute didn't go that way. We have to hope that Ryan Spann is going to go to the grappling here if we're thinking about betting him, because we can see there's a very little resistance to being taken down. There's very little resistance to being held down for Anthony Smith, leaving a gaping path to victory that anybody wants to take this guy down, use a little ground and pound, and just accumulate top control. Pretty easy way to beat Smith. What are you seeing in the grappling stats here?
Yeah, I think this is what stuck out to me the most. Just man, how terrible Anthony Smith's takedown defense is. You mentioned how bad it is, a 47% takedown defense. So yeah, Ryan Spann is going to have a strength advantage. I've seen him, pick guys up and slam them. I think if he wants to, like, he can absolutely, there's no question about it, take down Anthony Smith. And when Anthony Smith's on bottom, you mentioned how much he's controlled. He's controlled 36.46% of the time. That's a ton. It's mostly because he doesn't really make an effort to get back up to his feet. He's kind of throwing up submissions, which a lot of the time they don't work. Sometimes it works, but is it going to work against Ryan Spann? I don't think so. So yeah, Ryan Spann has a clear path to victory. Not only do I think he has an advantage on the feet, not by much, but still an advantage on the feet with the power, with how hittable Smith is. But I think if he can take down Anthony Smith, I think he's going to 100% win minutes of the fight. I think it's going to look very easy. The problem for me, Uncle Weez, I don't know if it's the same for you, but it is a 25-minute fight, and that's where it does concern me a little bit. If this was a 3-round fight, I would 120% be betting Ryan Spann here. It's just, do I think that Ryan Spann can go out here and wrestle for 25 minutes? Do I think he can go out here and put a beating on Anthony Smith for 25 minutes? Because we see a lot of times that we see guys go out there and put a beating on Anthony Smith for 10 minutes, 12 and a half minutes. And then these guys start to slow down. And we talked about it. Like Anthony Smith has that Homer Simpson defense where he's getting beat up all fight, and his opponents get so tired from just beating this guy up where he starts to turn it around and he beats them up and he gets a finish. That's why he has a 92% finish rate. He's not winning a lot of decisions because he's losing a lot of minutes in the fight. And I was taking a look through his record, and there's just so many scenarios where Anthony Smith is getting beat. And then, he's coming back and winning later in the fight, like Alexander Gustafsson. I believe he was down 2-1 going into the 4th round. Anthony Smith turns it around, wins in that 4th round. Volkan Oezdemir, he starts turning it around, gets a submission in the 3rd round against Oezdemir. And then I'll just going down. There's like so many scenarios where Andrew Sanchez was looking very good. Andrew Sanchez was clearly up, I believe, 2 rounds. And then Anthony Smith KOs him in the 3rd. So that's my only concern, Uncle Weezy. And like I said, this is a 3-round fight. There's no question about it. I'd be betting Spann, but my concern is what happens when this fight gets into the 3rd round, the 4th round, and the 5th round, because Ryan Spann, I've heard takes that people are saying Ryan Spann has 1 round to get it done, and I completely disagree with that. I think his cardio is not terrible, but it's not great as well. We saw in the Sam Alvey fight where he did slow down quite a bit. I thought he can even lose that Sam Alvey fight. It was a very close fight. It looked like Alvey did hurt Spann in the 3rd round. Just a terrible look, fighting so close with a guy like Sam Alvey there, that I have serious concerns. Like, what happens if he looks like that in the 3rd round against Anthony Smith, and then moving on to the 4th and the 5th round, how is Ryan Spann going to look? So, Anthony Smith is notorious for getting beat up for 2.5 rounds, maybe more if it is a 5-round fight, and then coming back and winning. So that's my only concern, and that's why I've not pulled the trigger on Ryan Spann yet. But with that said, I do think he's going to be winning this fight up until he's not, or if he is able to get a finish, I do think it's a path to victory as well.
Yeah, you echoed my exact concerns with this situation, and that's that, we can talk about Look at the stats for Smitty, right? He lands 3 strikes a minute, absorbs 4.5. He gets six takedowns. He gets taken down 21 times. He controls his opponents 8% of the time. He gets controlled 36% of the time. I mean, it just looks like this guy, when he's in the cage, he's just losing constantly. But then his toughness is his biggest asset. The guy is incredibly tough, which is, it doesn't really line up with his record. A guy that tough shouldn't be getting finished 81% of the time. I mean, 16 losses, 13 of them have come inside the distance. That's a function of somebody who's losing minutes constantly. And that's what we're looking at here for Spann. Can he win minutes? And if he fights smart, Brady, if he goes to that efficient wrestling attack, that 41.67% takedown offense, that 27.45% control time for, if he goes to that, the difference between Anthony Smith and a lot of other fighters that are wrestling deficient is the percentage of the takedown defense. See, some guys you'll have to chain together 3 or 4 takedown attempts. You get the takedown on the 4th attempt, and then you can hold the guy down for a while, but it's exhausting. With Smith, we saw Alexander Rakic on top of him for 3 rounds, and he never even got credited with a takedown. It was just, Smitty was just folding like a lawn chair. So there is potential for Spann to win this, going the distance, just winning minutes, getting on top of him and staying there. Will he take that path, or will he try to finish Smith? Because if he tries to finish him and he's unsuccessful, that's when we're going to see Smitty get that 3rd or 4th round comeback and finish Spann when he's tired, because Spann's huge. You know, it's hard to see Spann going 5 rounds. It really is. So that's why we both like this, fight doesn't go to decision, because it covers both sides. I could see Spann winning this fight early. I could see Smitty winning this fight late. But one thing I can't see is, this fight going to decision. Somebody's probably getting finished here. And I think that line at minus 250-ish is there's still some value there.
Yeah, like, it's weird, right? Like, it's just hard to imagine Smith winning a decision here. Like, in general, like, Smith does not win decisions, a 92% finish rate, but his path to victory is literally getting beat up for 3 rounds until Spann potentially gasses out if it goes that far, and getting a late victory. So that's why I'm really shocked, and I'm curious to hear about your take on this. Why is Spann the underdog, and why is Spann a big underdog here as well? You take a look at it on FanDuel Sportsbook, Spann is at plus 152, and Anthony Smith is at minus 188. And it just makes no sense to me, because we talked about how Spann's going to be winning this fight, has potential to get an early finish, has more than potential to win minutes here. And Anthony Smith's path to victory is literally Ryan Spann making a mistake, Ryan Spann gassing out, this fight getting extended. So yeah, the line just makes completely no sense to me at all. Like, in a fight where Ryan Spann's going to be winning this fight up until he's not. And obviously there's a very good chance that Ryan Spann can finish this fight. Anthony Smith's been finished more times than I can count on 2 hands. So you mentioned, though, the fight doesn't go to decision, is minus 240. I actually do have a bet on this fight. I got the fight won't start round 5 at minus 145. Put 2 units on that. And then what I also might do is, in terms of a little hedge, is put 0.25 units on Anthony Smith to win in round 5, which is plus 1,600. But yeah, I just really don't see this fight, going to decision. I really don't see this fight getting extended to the 4th or 5th round. I think Ryan Spann does finish Anthony Smith early. But my concern, and why I have not bet Ryan Spann, although it is very intriguing, plus 152, is because if Ryan Spann does not get the finish within those first 3 rounds, I think Anthony Smith's live. But, it might be a good live betting situation where, Anthony Smith in the 2nd and the 3rd round, if he's still there, he's going to be a huge dog in terms of live betting. And then I might just take a shot on Anthony Smith at a crazy amount of odds, because I find it hard to see Ryan Spann going out here in the 4th and 5th round and having success against Anthony Smith. The Sam Alvey fight was just a terrible look. He was slowing down a ton. He was looking horrible against Sam Alvey, and Anthony Smith has been fighting a lot better competition. He's a veteran, and he's been notorious for getting these late finishes. So just curious, Uncle Weezy, your thoughts on the fight does not start round 5, minus 145. That was what I was looking at. And then also they actually set the under 3.5 rounds at minus 130 to the under. and then plus 100 to the over. And then also your thoughts on the money line. Ryan Spann plus 152. I think that's off. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Do you think that's off as well?
I think it's really off. I do. Here's the thing. Like we've went through most of the stats here. We still got to cover strength of schedule, but I mean, you're going to see Ryan Spann an inch taller, 3-inch reach advantage, 3 years younger. So let's give him the measurables advantage. The striking stats, we talked about it. Let's give the advantage here to Spann. He's got way more power. He's landing more strikes than he absorbs. He has a win at minning potential on the feet. And then we talked about the grappling, where Smith folds like a lawn chair and gets out controlled at a 4.5 to 1 ratio, gets taken down at a 3.5 to 1 ratio. And we see Spann getting takedowns at almost a 50% efficiency, out controlling his opponents almost 2 to 1. So we could see Spann having the measurables advantage, the striking advantage, and the grappling advantage. And we'll give Smith the experience advantage and the strength of schedule advantage. You know, that on paper to me kind of just says, oh, it's about 50-50, right? You know, yeah. I mean, you think, I mean, that's what it sounds like. But then when you look at the line, you're like, well, wait a second here. You know, if you don't think Ryan Spann can finish Anthony Smith, then why is Anthony Smith getting finished in his career at an 81% at a 81% rate? You know, there's a path to victory for a finish here. I mean, we know how tough Anthony Smith is. And that's why I think this line is as wide as it is, because I think people think, oh, you know, Spann's just, now that Smith took this step down from guys like Gustafsson, Teixeira, and Rakic down to guys like Devin Clark and Jimmy Crute, and then Ryan Spann here, they're thinking he'll probably easily win. But like you and I, we had money on Crute. If Crute just started wrestling that, you know, early in that fight, it would have been such an easy victory for him. He would have cruised. And we just got to worry, is Spann going to gas out before the end of this fight? And we know how tough Smith is. That life-changing beating he got from Glover Teixeira, he was handing his teeth to Jason Herzog in the 4th round. He was getting his teeth knocked out by Teixeira by ground and pound, and he was handing them to the referee so they could be saved. Instead of him quitting, that's what he was doing. So it's really hard to get him out of there. I can see people thinking Smith's got the experience advantage, he's got the strength of schedule advantage, and that he can win this going away, just having those advantages. But I don't see the line being that wide. I think it should be closer to 50-50 here. I think the value for the money line is definitely on Spann, because he can win minutes easily. There's an easy path to him winning minutes and accumulating rounds here. He just has to not get finished by Smith. And I think if you're on Smith, I don't see, because he's such a poor minute winner, I think the only way that he wins is inside the distance. So if you're on the Smith side, I really think you have to bet him inside the distance. It's the way that you can get this down to a 50-50 fight, which is what I believe it is. But his only path to victory is finishing Spann, because he's just not a good enough minute winner and round winner in order for you to bet him minus 180, minus 190 on the money line. No chance, dude. Bet this fight doesn't go to decision. If you're on the Smith side, you know, you got to bet him inside the distance. And if you're on the Spann side, you're already getting plus 145, plus 150. There's really no need to be greedy there and say I have to bet him inside the distance. You're already getting 1.5 to 1. So I think the value was on Spann here. But if I was thinking that I was going to be betting Smith, I'd definitely be betting him inside the distance.
Yep, 100% agree. They do have Smith inside the distance at plus 135 and Spann inside the distance at plus 195. And I'm 100% with you. And either way, like, this fight's going to finish, right? I'd be shocked if this fight did not finish one way or another. How I'm kind of looking at it is I think Spann within the first 3 rounds or Anthony Smith within the last 2 rounds. I think it's either going to be Spann 1, 2, or 3 or Smith 4 and 5. But either way, I just don't see this fight going to a decision. And if this fight goes to a decision, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. You know, I might sound a little bit crazy here, but if this fight goes to decision, I kind of think Spann has a good chance of winning it, to be honest. Like, we talked about the minute winning potential, and I do think he might drop those last 2 rounds. But by that point, I do think he'll win those first 3. So Spann by decision is plus 650, and Smith by decision is plus 300. You know, I get why it's so wide. I think the more than likely scenario is going to be Spann winning inside the distance. I think this fight does finish in general, but I think, call me crazy, but I think the guy that's more capable of winning a decision here is going to be Spann.
I agree 100% with that assessment. Like I say, the minute losing of Anthony Smith leads me to believe that the one that would win this fight by decision is going to be Spann. The question is, does he have the correct game plan? Will he go to the wrestling early and often enough to be able to bank minutes, bank rounds, do it over and over again, rinse and repeat for 5 straight rounds? And if he is efficient with his wrestling, and if Smith shows that lack of urgency of getting up, yeah, man. And what did you say it was? Plus 650 or something like that?
Yeah, plus 650.
That's juicy. That's juicy. Yeah. The question is, can he go 5 rounds? We haven't really seen Spann do that. I mean, he might have done that pre-UFC, but
Yep.
I don't actually have it right in front of me. But the big advantage here for Smith, like I say, it's the strength of schedule. We see names like Alexander Rakic will probably be fighting for a title. Teixeira next up for the title. Alexander Gustafsson took John Jones about as far as anybody ever did. And then you got John Jones before that, This guy, Smitty's fighting the far better level of competition here. And according to my strength of schedule stats, Brady, I've got a 1.84 ratio for Smith to 1.19 for Spann. So Smitty's fighting an average opponent of 7.38 wins and 4 losses, while for Spann's average opponent, it's 4.75 wins, 4 losses. Their wins are somewhat similar. Smith's just being a little bit better, 1.4 ratio to 1.15 for Spann, 10.1 total fights to 9.33 for Spann. So Smitty's wins just a little bit better. Overall, Smitty a pretty good amount better. And then when it comes to losses, we see the average guy, UFC opponent that's beating Anthony Smith has a UFC record of 9.83 wins and 3.67 losses. So that tells us the level of competition that Smitty's losing to. And the people who really do look at that strength of schedule as a major indicator of who's going to win a fight, that's why you're seeing Smith this wide. That's why you're seeing him be this big of a favorite. It's the fact that when you look at the losses for Smitty in the UFC, you're looking at names like Alexander Rakic, Glover Teixeira, a 21-0 John Jones, a 13-8 Thiago Santos back in 2018 when Santos was murking everybody. Cesar Ferreira back in 2016, and then he got submitted by Braga Neto back in 2013. But, the last 4 losses are to Maheta, John Jones, Glover Teixeira, and Alexander Rakic. And nobody's going to put Ryan Spann's name, in the same company as those guys' names. That's why people think that Smith is a big favorite here. But like we said, we just went through all these numbers. We don't see Smith winning minutes here. We see Smith being very inefficient with his striking, showing very bad striking defense. He has as many knockdowns in 16 fights as Spann has in 5. So there's a lot of on-paper advantages here for Spann, and it leads me to believe that there's some value here. The question is, can he get him out of there, or does he have 5-round cardio in order to be able to seal the vault here and get this win? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go with Spann here for sure, 100%. It's just, I don't know if I'm going to bet it yet. I think there's a ton of value on that line. Plus 152, that just makes no sense to me, and especially after talking it through with you, taking a look at all the stats. But if this was a 3-round fight, I would be 100% betting Spann here. But I might still take a shot. Especially at that line, it just doesn't make sense. I think it should be at least a pick 'em, right? Like I think Spann's going to be winning the majority of this fight. Probably finish Anthony Smith, and that's actually what I'm going to predict here. I'm going to say that Spann does get him out of there within the first 2 rounds. But the problem and the concern for me is, what does Spann look like in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round? That's my only concern. But other than that, I do think Spann has a good chance of getting Anthony Smith out of there. Anthony Smith has been finished a ton of times. We mentioned he's been knocked out like 9 times in his entire career. He's been submitted 4 times as well. I think Spann's live for either of those, really. I think he can hurt Smith on the feet. I think maybe a club and sub situation as well. I think if he can take down Anthony Smith, Smith will not make an effort to really get up. I think Spann can land some ground and pound, maybe get a finish on the mat there. So, yeah, I like Ryan Spann quite a bit. to be honest. But what I like more is going to be the fight doesn't go to decision, minus 240, or the fight does not start round 5, which is a minus 145 on Bet Online. And then it's also minus 164 on FanDuel. I think both of those are very good spots. And then if you want to, the Spann decision prop is plus 650. If this does go the distance, I kind of think that Spann is going to win the decision, winning those first 3 rounds, probably dropping those last 2. But in reality, I really would be shocked if this fight did go the distance there. So my final prediction is going to be Ryan Spann. I'm going to say, I'll say second round knockout win for Ryan Spann. Smith's way too hittable, and Ryan Spann's way too powerful. I think he does knock him out here. What is your final prediction and any last final thoughts for this fight, Uncle Weezy?
Yeah, the last final thought I just want to bring up is that Smitty does train at Factory X up there in Elevation in Colorado. So like you said, man, if this fight does go past the 3rd round, Spann being such a huge guy, maybe getting himself tired out a little bit, going to the wrestling, we could definitely see a late finish here for Smitty. So I will be taking a long look at those 4th and 5th round props for Smith if I do get to a bet on Spann. But I do think Spann finishes this probably in the 2nd or 3rd round via ground and pound or getting a submission. He's too heavy-handed. I could see him having success on the feet as well. I think there's a lot of paths to victory here for Ryan Spann early and often, going to that wrestling, that power striking, landing a big shot. So yeah, I'll be picking Spann inside the distance, but I might be taking a little flyer at that decision prop at plus 650, and I might also be touching up those 4th and 5th round props for Smitty should Spann not be able to get him out of there. That conditioning at Elevation for Smith, that experience, that toughness, he could turn this fight around late.
Yep, Smith wins in round 5 is plus 1,600, and then Smith wins in round 4 is plus 1,200 there. So yeah, I kind of think that's his path to victory, is kind of, getting beat up for 3 rounds and then Spann potentially gassing out. But I think Spann does finish him before it does get to that point. So yeah, guys, we broke it down. That's about it. If you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like. It really does help us out. Also subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Helps us out as well. Go subscribe to Uncle Weezy. His channel is Uncle Weezy on YouTube. Go follow him on Twitter, MMA Weezy. I believe he's going to be starting to get content out on Monday. So go check him out. Lots of great stuff going on there. If you have not yet, go check out Stat Diggers on Pub Sports Radio. We went live like a week and a half ago at this point, going over the full card, doing kind of what we did here, but doing it for every single fight on the card. So if you've not checked that out yet, go check it out. Lots of great stuff there. And yeah, that's about it, guys. Good luck for UFC Vegas 37, 15 fights. Hoping all 15 of them do stay on. Lots of solid betting opportunities as well. And can't wait to have some fights back. Took the week off, but we're finally back. All right, guys. See ya later and good luck for this week. See you guys.